Welcome to the Magic in the Cloud podcast, where exceptional visionaries reveal the personal journeys behind their remarkable success. This is a conversation with leaders who've transformed industries by navigating pivotal moments, making bold decisions, and cultivating extraordinary teams. We explore the turning points that define their careers, those instances where intuition met strategy and everything changed. It's an intimate look at the leadership philosophies that drive revolutionary outcomes, with cloud solutions as the quiet enabler. Here are your hosts, Joseph Griffith and Ryan Golombeski.
Everybody, and welcome to another episode of Magic in the Cloud. Three things about my guest today. One, in the Salesforce ecosystem, few people walk that line between technical expertise and emotional intelligence, as today's guest. He's been instrumental in transforming how companies serve their customers, not just through products, but through human connection. One cool thing. Number two, he solved over 10,000 support cases in his life. And he's built trust with the Salesforce ecosystem. And he helps people to not just sell, but he emphasizes listening. And yeah, before all this, he studied glassblowing. And lastly, if you ever wonder what it really means to serve, grow, and lead in a crowded tech space and still have fun doing it, you're in the right place today. And with that, everybody, please welcome my next guest, Mr. Sean Lewis. Hey, Sean.
How are you today? Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, man. I think I could probably talk to you for 2 hours, but we'll try and keep it under the 40-some minutes. So let's talk a little bit about where you work and what you do. Talk to us about Picasso, your role, and what you do for Picasso.
Sure. In my day job, I am partnership director for Picasso. We are one of the original AppExchange partners as a Salesforce partner. So our company was originally a IT company, and founder bought Salesforce as a customer about 20 years ago. And something about email to case didn't do what he needed it to do way back then. At this point, that's turned into getting grandfathered into the AppExchange, 6 different apps focused on Service Cloud optimization, agent productivity, everything that you wish you could have out of the box. We have it probably pretty much ready to go. So it's a 15, 16 years head start on solving all of the list of issues, new features, extended functionality that customers of Service Cloud need to serve their customers more effectively.
Yeah, so it sounds like you guys are ahead of the curve. And when we talk about niching down these days, I think the general philosophy is if you think you've niched down, you need to niche down more. And that sounds like that's been part of the culture of Picasso for, you said, 16 years.
Yeah, it's an inch wide and 2 miles deep, I think is the philosophy we take. We really have a very particular ideal customer profile. We're looking for Service Cloud teams led by a director or VP of service, wanting to make sure that their customer experience is as excellent as possible. I actually started here as a customer support specialist, focusing with our app support team. So I was able to use the apps that we offer to support the apps. And over the past 8 years, moved across a few different areas of the company. I'm a former account executive, service manager, solution engineer, and now do partner leadership full-time, really focus a lot on Salesforce, but also additional partners that are philosophically aligned, really focusing on how to Service Cloud become a strategic investment rather than just a cost center for the companies who use it.
I appreciate that. I think what I've learned since you and I are both in that same ecosystem is if you can't get the client to see the platform as strategic to the success, then they definitely see it as an expensive tool.
And it can certainly be an expensive tool, but the more you invest in it, and this isn't just me saying it, there's a lot of research about this at this point, customer experience investment does turn into significant ROI in terms of top line company revenue. The difference between focusing on costing, minimizing the inputs to help customers versus making the customer experience at that post-sales touch point every bit as good every time. And that's how we really are able to figure out. I know who's typically going to walk away after a first conversation with us. If they're just looking to make things as cheap as possible, you can do that, but that's not really what we tend to focus on. Usually the more complex, longer cycle customers who have high-tech manufacturing, more in-depth types of conversations with customers, help make them right. That's what we're looking to focus on, is make sure the people doing that work are as efficient as possible, as valuable as possible. So we lead with end user experience as a vehicle for customer experience.
Hang on. There we go. She's back on. Love the whole concept as to how you guys approach the industry. One of the things I think that people would want to learn about any partnership, but especially in the Salesforce one, is what defines a successful partnership with the Salesforce AEs and the customers. What can you share with the audience about the one or two or three things that you do and your team does to create that successful partnership with Salesforce?
I think the main thing and what I look for in strong partnerships is reciprocal engagement. There has to be benefit, there has to be value for both parties. Not to say that everyone wins all the time, but the approach needs to be, how can I help you be successful in return? Certainly a lot of upside for myself as well, for our company, but we're not looking for getting everyone signed up for a partner program. We're looking for customers get good business outcomes, both partners involved in helping them get that, see some upside, just to make sure this isn't a one-way street in either direction. But for Salesforce co-selling, for customer conversations with different partners in the Service Cloud space or otherwise, that's what we want to focus on, is making sure that everyone is in a better place than when before we met.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about, you mentioned ideal customer. Can you tell me a little bit more about what an ideal customer looks like for you?
Yeah, we're looking for support and customer service leadership that values the people doing the work on their team. They value customer experience. I think it was a Dreamforce session 2018. I saw Nick Mehta interview Tiffany Bova about customer experience. Nick Mehta is the CEO of Gainsight, big focus on customer success for them. And the conversation essentially boiled down to, it doesn't matter what your product is, it doesn't matter what you sell, your customer experience is your product. And you need to recognize that, you need to invest it, you need to protect it, you need to be the shepherd of customer experience. Otherwise, you're just going to be reactive and your competitors will be able to overtake you eventually.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective. And that's one of the big reasons why I wanted to have you on the show, is that there's this common thread that I see really starting to stick, and that is people and culture, customer service. It's no disrespect to tech, and it's no disrespect to standard operating procedures and business process and all that. Maybe for people like you and me, it feels like we've been a part of that forever, but I do think in general we're seeing more people waking up to culture and people. I don't know, your thoughts on that?
The two things that came down to is pay attention to the technology developments with Agentforce rolling out late last year at Salesforce. That's a necessary dimension of that. That's what Salesforce is focused on. But the one that really stood out to me was two words. It was in person. You have to be in front of people. You have to show up. And that's really what makes the difference, moves the needle on a relationship, on a conversation. It's easy to ignore Slack messages or emails, but you show up, you make the effort to be there, to collaborate. That's really what does make the difference with partnerships.
Yeah, Sean, what was the phrase again? I missed it.
In person, two words.
In person. In person. Yeah. So I think what happened, especially since COVID, is we, in a good way, right? We learned a lot about ourselves, and we were forced to have to do as many things as possible remotely and via tech. And I think that helped us all a ton, right? Think about like banking and finance and things like that. But I remember back in the days, we all got on airplanes. It was about, hey, is this company, is this team, is this person worth getting on an airplane to go meet them? And that was an interesting decision, because oftentimes I felt like we couldn't win or we couldn't help them if we didn't meet them. And then we hit this tech boom and COVID, and now there's this perception that it's just all going to happen. And I think what we're seeing is we went for a while with just using tech to connect the dots. And now you're having to develop a culture, a best practices. Like, how do you teach somebody to follow a process and be authentic over digital like we are today? That to me is a different skill set than getting on a plane, getting in a rental car, meeting in the conference room and then grabbing a beer after work. That's same goals, but way different approach. Not a lot of the same things you can transfer when you got to try and figure out and do it in a different dimension electronically.
Yeah, the pandemic hit, and about 18 months later, sitting in my basement on a Tuesday afternoon around 2 p.m., I started to feel like, hey, the office vibe is off today. And oh no, that's my mental health deteriorating. I haven't left the house in 18 months. That's really what was happening. We didn't go back to an office in the same way that we did before. I am not a fan of in-office mandates. I think that people understand themselves well enough to know where and how they're going to get work done the best. I'm as distracting as I am distractible in an in-person office setting. I go in once a week when I'm not traveling, but there is a benefit to seeing actual people in the same building as you are. And for the in-person strategy, it's not even an in-office. There's a lot of benefit. I can trace my career trajectory to a series of kind of in-person conversations in some ways. But it's not about being in an office and showing up and putting the FaceTime in. It's about where do I need to be so that I can drive a relationship forward. And that's how you get business done. It's not about the best technology or the cheapest SOW. It's really, do we have alignment and trust and the ability to earn that trust by showing up, making the effort. It's really as simple as, do I need to drive to DC for a 20-minute meeting in a single day? Or do I need to fly to Cleveland to make sure that we have the right people talking on our team and a customer's team, and really make sure that we know where we're headed together?
Yeah, I think that's well said. Talk to the audience a little bit about your own personal approach to building trust. Are there any nuggets, any secret sauce that you can share that you feel help you create that bond?
One interesting part of the last few years has been my transition from customer service over into sales. Never liked sales. You go buy a car, it's not a pleasant experience. Behave the same way as I'd seen sales people behave in other circumstances in order to make a living. But what I had available to me at Picasso was a suite of products that I knew, I've used, I see the value, I see how matured the actual product itself is. What I'm selling is legit. Suddenly it was a very different conversation with myself. I have something that has material value to the people who might buy it. I don't have to do anything other than show up, be myself, be honest about things, and be ready to say, you know what, this isn't a good fit. Our solutions are great, but they don't actually help you. That builds a lot of trust. We've got 6 different app exchange apps that have been around for at least, I think on average, about 10 or 11 years, some even longer. And the trust comes from not trying to sell ice cubes in the winter. If people don't need a solution we have, I want to find out and call that out as quickly as possible. And it's the same thing with partnerships. It's the same thing with customer service. It really just comes down to honesty. One of the most powerful de-escalation tools I had as a support rep and as a support manager was admitting we got something wrong and saying sorry. That really freaked people out. That would, any angry person, on the rare instance we did have them, would immediately stop and think, oh, okay, I'm talking to a real person. I'm not talking to a robot or a call center rep who can't leave the script without written approval from 2 managers. It was really just, yeah, we screwed up. I'm sorry. That's not a great way to have you experience this product and experience this company, but I show up and I acknowledge that.
Yeah.
That is a radical thing. Protectionist, cost-cutting mentality of call centers. We're here to actually help people, not just to minimize the cost of keeping customers.
I captured 3 nuggets. One was, you got to be okay saying no. Okay, it's not a fit. It's okay to say it's not a fit, and people respect you for that. And number 2, and interesting, this is maybe the second time today I heard this, which is, it's really powerful to be honest and say, I made a mistake. And I do think that in this, I know when I was originally trained on how to deal with people, it was fake it till you make it. And that's a whole nother, we could probably do a whole nother podcast on, give me examples of where you did that and it came back to bite you. So I think number 1 is be able to say no. And number 2 was raise your hand when you make a mistake or you mess up. And then number 3 was, and I thought this was really cool, man. I think most people believe that in customer facing roles, whether it be sales, customer success, whatever, you got to be witty and funny and creative and all that. They think you got to be blessed with this secret sauce of skill set. And what I learned over the years is if I had information and then my team turned it into knowledge and they could back it up and I had belief, like confidence and belief, interfacing with the client was just adding a few. So there's a few ways to ask like open-ended questions, or there's an agenda you want to have. There's a couple of mechanical things to put in front of that. But if I knew what we did and believed in what we did, then it's easy. But I think most people think you got to get good at winging. I don't think most people realize that. I think most people don't realize you have that like internal operational excellence. Fair?
Yeah, I got good at winging it too. But that didn't come from a standard operating procedure. That comes from absorbing years worth of, this one went a little off the rails. This was an unusual one. What do you do in those circumstances? But it really comes down to, you have to be able to do the basics in order to get to a place where you're comfortable when things go off script. The thing that I've been able to leverage and thrive is read the people, read the room, understand what the motivations are. The dirty secret is I don't really know how many people get excited about business software, and at which point they just want their problems to not be problems and be able to go home with a paycheck. So if I'm helping someone as a support rep, if I'm talking to somebody as a solution engineer, understand what the problem is, help figure out, can we solve this? And if we can, let's work together to actually do it. If we can't, let's not waste each other's time.
Yeah, that's another great nugget, Sean. I think a lot of us are trained on how to extract from the person the business wins. You're going to make money, save money, improve performance, productivity. Everybody knows you have to try and extract that. But I would agree. I think a lot of people forget to ask what the personal win is. Sometimes they don't ask, they don't think it's important, or they're afraid to ask.
They're afraid. That's the critical thing is,
you think people are afraid to ask, like it's, oh, Sean, I can't ask Sean if he's going to get a bonus or a promotion, or he's just going to be able to sleep at night. It's too personal.
I think just you dropped the pretense of, let's not acknowledge that there are real people taking risks in their professional life to solve problems. That's where I see the biggest obstacle to progress is people who are scared to take the risks. They don't want to put themselves on the line. And understandably, that if you're going to decide to make a business purchase, it comes with the risk that it doesn't work out. The thing that would make me run away from any relationship faster than anything else is someone who says, I will 100% guarantee the outcome. Because that means the 100% guarantee is there is no outcome. It's really about managing risk and helping people be comfortable taking those risks on their personal behalf to solve business problems.
Yeah, I agree with you. And before we roll into a little bit about you, and you may not have anything else, but what, if anything else, about your role, Picasso, what you do, how you do it, would you like to share with the audience? If you have anything else. I know we covered a lot.
Yeah, I think the thing I wanted to highlight is beyond my role at Picasso. It's been 8 years since I started, give or take, with Picasso in several different roles. I'd never worked with Salesforce before joining this company. And at this point, where that's gotten me has been pretty effective in growing my skill set, growing my network, growing my income. And at this point, the other thing that I do as a volunteer role actually is I am the user group leader for Salesforce's Service Blazer community.
Ah, yeah.
And
okay, nice.
the basic idea of what the Service Blazer community is, Salesforce has a decades-long history of engaging their community, helping people find answers to their problems, and really building out your professional network. There's a Service Blazer, a Sales Blazer, a Data Blazer. The intent for those communities is to reach beyond the admins, beyond the company leadership, and really understand how do we get more value out of Salesforce by getting the content in front of end users. The AI capabilities started to emerge late last year. I had a brief moment of existential crisis of, am I about to help automate the next 5 million of me out of the opportunities that I've had?
Yeah.
And the pace of things has not unfolded at the same rate that the marketing might suggest around AI. But the focus of the user group, and the reason I volunteered to be this user group leader for the Service Blazer community, is this has been an effective way for me to take good care of my family. I've grown from a customer service rep into technology and ecosystem leader, in as much as I can call myself that. I think the next generation, the people who are in call center jobs, the people who are starting their Salesforce careers, transitioning from something else like I did, which was glassblowing. That's what my degree is in. And I think the opportunity to go from a 21-year-old working in a glass studio and getting a degree in sculpture and moving over the course of several years to speaking at New York World Tour and TEDx and user groups and podcasts is I've had the opportunity to learn Salesforce starting by being an end user. So the Service Blazer user group and the community, there's a Slack channel for it, is the place that Salesforce and all the people working in Service Cloud are starting to gravitate towards. There's a lot of different workspaces across Slack and across the Trailblazer community, but the Service Blazer community is the centralized hub of where do I find resources, where do I find people who are working on the same problems, where do I find my next job opportunity, and where can I make sure that more people who are doing what I'm doing are able to find those same resources. That's been a big focus, and it's been a really enjoyable experience so far. Not because I'm feeling good about myself for volunteering, it's because people have started to show up on LinkedIn and in this community in person, showing up to group meetings, showing up at events where I've been speaking about this, and they relate to it. People who are a call center, customer service rep saying, this was eye-opening, and it was approachable and laid back and really helpful to see an industry where there hasn't been a lot of upward mobility historically. Suddenly learning AI, even as an end user, means there's more career options and opportunities going forward. And I'm enjoying the fact that I can be able to show the path to more people. I've walked it. It's challenging, but I think the people who have customer service experience and who are willing to take the steps to learn some of the technology have a big opportunity. AI is going to change a lot of stuff, but it's not going to eliminate people. But the people who learn about AI, understand how to use it, they're going to have the biggest opportunity in the next 2 to 3 years.
I certainly am glad I asked you if you had anything else to add, because that was a home run, man.
I think the 2-hour estimate was probably light if we really took the cap off.
Yeah, I think we have to make sure we tell the producers to highlight that clip, because I think that nugget is one that, first of all, for anybody, like you said, in the customer service arena, they have to be getting nervous about AI taking their job away. And some of it's because they're not doing their own research on what it can and can't do. But a lot of times people don't have the time, don't have the wherewithal, whatever it might be. So we'll make sure we cover that in the wrap up where they can get to the service.
Absolutely.
And I do think that I'd want a lot of people to see this clip and say, look, here's a guy who's really done it. And embrace the AI thing. It actually is opportunistic. It's not career threatening. That was great advice, man. I think a lot of people would benefit from your modesty about it all, as to why you did it and how it happened. But I think that part of your story is really important to help instill confidence in people. I think a lot of people are afraid that their jobs are just going away. They hear very little and they infer a ton, most of which is probably not right.
I had someone ask me last year, right before the official Agentforce rollout, say, is AI going to take my job? Yeah. And I thought for a second, I was like, can you make AI take your job? Because if you can, now you have a new job, and it's probably a better job.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That might be, to me, that might be a topic for another podcast down the road, is how do we help people how do we, I don't know, I always like to use this word EQ, right? Emotional intelligence. But how do we help them improve their emotional intelligence around that? Like saying, hey, embrace it. To me, it's all about attitude and all that. And I've been lucky because I was forced into learning the tech. And I bumped into a few people who ran on the tech. And I got to tell you, somewhere along the line, I made the jump. And I said, you know what? To me, AI is way more about cultural and organizational readiness, not about a specific use case, fix my procurement financials problem. That's not the issue. If your organization's ready, then you got a lot of cool jobs coming your way. If your organization culture is not ready, dude, you could be in trouble. That's where I think it plays. I don't think it plays at, oh my gosh, my job's going away. I don't think so.
I think the opportunities I'm not a developer. The opportunities aren't in me learning AI. And I think there's a good case to be made that understanding AI, getting past that initial hurdle of what's the fear that this is going to take my job, the more I see of it, the more I see this is something that humans can use. This is not something that can do what humans can do.
Yeah.
And there's a big need to demystify and open the black box and let people see inside. It's very reassuring to realize, oh, I'm able to think. This stuff just does an incredibly good job at a statistics problem in some ways.
100%, dude. I just had this crazy idea that I'd love to be a part of it. I don't have to be, but and you could take the idea. But I could see doing like a skit or two at one of your user group meetings. Have somebody come in. It reminded me of when my kid went to college, and they had a bunch of sophomores put on skits about what the first year's like, right, from the student's perspective, and they made us the parents watch and go, oh yeah, look at that. All the things that you think your kid's going to worry about, they don't, and all the things that you don't think they're going to worry about, they do. So it was really eye-opening. That'd be really cool if you could sit down and go, hey, here's what happens when you think AI is going to take over your job. That'd be really cool, dude. I think you provide even add more value to your group. I love your perspective there, and I love how you have integrated it into your career. It's awesome.
I think the opportunity to not take this too seriously really does need to be highlighted. Not in that it's not a serious type of conversation, but there's still fun to be had, even if there's hard work to do. The culture that Picasso has built is very intentional, and one of the company fundamentals is, in fact, have fun. And at a certain point, that's really what I want to spend my time doing. That doesn't pay the bills all that well, but it is something that shouldn't be ignored. I think if you're working yourself to death at the expense of enjoying your life, that's not the direction I would probably want to head. That's just me. No worries if that's something you want to do, but I like the phrase work to live rather than live to work.
I appreciate that, man. I think it's well said. To me, life starts every morning with two things, and then it branches from there. One, you wake up with a purpose. That's number one. And number two is
coffee.
And then you accept the standard of living that comes with that purpose. So you said earlier, certain things don't pay the bill. I want to talk about you a little bit and get into this glassblowing thing. But I think it starts with that. You wake up in the morning, hey, I have purpose in life. Number two, let's be honest, what's it pay me? What kind of home can I live in? Can I eat tonight? Do I have to have a car or drive or healthcare, it might be? And then it's up to you to decide if those align. And if not, you got to go get more of either one. And sometimes you try and get them in one thing, but that's really tough these days. Bottom line, that's the goal. And I think if you can get to that balance where the purpose is a little bit more important than the standard of living, I think you're in a good place.
Yeah, the standard of living, there is a not artificial, very real floor, especially with what AI is going to do, any of the political, any of the economic climate. You can't feed kids love and hope, unfortunately. So yeah. I think there's a need to make sure that the needs are met. But at that point, I think I'd be a terrible billionaire. I'd just keep on compulsively fixing things. You can't stay a billionaire if you spend it on social improvements. So there's the way that I evolved from glassblowing. I originally started school as a mechanical engineering major, and it was nothing math and all pressure, no fun, and walked away from that at a certain point. And my uncle, I'd always done art as well. So it was this combination of math and art and something that I don't quite understand as an 18-year-old. And it turns out it very much was not. So moved across the country from New Jersey to Arizona on about 4 days' notice. I knew I wanted to do something with glass. I'd learned a little bit about it.
What got you interested in glass?
I'd done woodworking and sculpture all through elementary school, all through high school. Glass was something that I'd seen from afar, but I was like, so in theory, I could get a job creating these objects out of glass. I get to play with fire. I'm going to get money to do this. And I get to make this stuff that really just is beyond any creative capabilities I've ever had before.
Yeah.
Sure. How hard could this be? Let's go figure it out. And so I was originally, walked away from the engineering path, went out to Arizona, learned from got a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Glass Art Society in 1994. They've been doing this since the 70s. If you've ever heard of Dale Chihuly up in Seattle, Dale used to rent studio time from this guy named Tom Philibon out in Tucson. So this was like, we're going to burn whatever's available in a garage in the 1970s and 80s type of setup. And by the time I got out there, he's got a production team. He's got 2 galleries. There's a school that they opened. So I got a chance to go out and learn glassblowing. And it was fantastic. The idea of an office job like scared the crap out of me in those days.
Yeah. So early on, not only do you have this we've talked about, like purpose, like I'm doing something creative, people appreciate it, and you get a degree, and you're making a couple bucks, right? So you're not suggesting you were wealthy or making a lot of money, but you are saying that you're making a couple of bucks. So at least you were putting food in your mouth and a place to sleep at night.
Not a whole lot.
Yeah, a couple of bucks.
Yeah, we moved back from Arizona. I met my wife out in Arizona, moved back to New Jersey in about 2009. And glassblowing is very team oriented. They had an incredibly experienced team I worked with. The instructors I worked with were the people I was spending my time with outside of doing glassblowing. And moving back to New Jersey, the place we lived in, there wasn't really a glass studio that close. Couldn't really find my way back into that type of community in the end. So I worked at, there's established team structure. It was a little bit more competitive, a little less collaborative. So I found a couple other different jobs. I worked for a company that did like props and theming, made giant styrofoam props. There was a couple of them that went out to Google. Every time Google released an early Android operating system update, they were naming them after alphabetic dessert items. So they had a cupcake and donut were like the early Android operating system update names. Nice. So Google was buying these. We made a 500-pound styrofoam cupcake that was sealed with epoxy and painted. That sat on the lawn of Google for years. Like I had some really weird, interesting jobs, but there's only so much you can make in terms of a good living in the arts industry. The arts industry is also an area where it's the people who run the companies in the arts industry are either the passion-driven, community-oriented entrepreneurs, or they're so unemployable that they have to start their own company to not starve to death. And it's about 50-50. So there's some really challenging personalities there as well. Eventually, we're looking at figuring out what do we want to do for starting a family. And it just doesn't quite get you where you want to be if you're making $15 an hour.
It doesn't quite satisfy that standard of living aspect of things.
We had a local friend, someone my wife worked with. His wife worked at a little manufacturing company, pretty local. Got an interview, and I remember the screening interview is like, it seems like you have a really interesting job. I was working at the art museum in Philadelphia doing art transport. It's like, why do you want to switch? And like, how does this translate into a customer service job? Because that's what it was going to be, on the phones, helping people with the equipment the company sold with remote tech support. Yesterday, I got to go to a museum trustee's house and take their Renoir and put it in a box and walk out the front door with it. I don't feel like they're going to let you do that if you're not good with customers. I'm sure that translates somehow. If they let you leave with the $50 million painting, it feels like maybe you had a good customer interaction. Otherwise, they call the police. What do I know? I'm just making stuff up as I go, with this interview. But got the job, spent 4.5 years doing. I was the only support person at the company for 4.5 years. Part machinery support, part software support, but just me.
That's another nugget, man. We're just like overloaded with nuggets here. If you look back in your career, I think a piece of advice would be go take a job someplace where you wind up having to do 15 things more than what they told you were going to do. Like, where do you go into an interview and say, can I have a job where you tell me to do these 3 things every day, but you keep throwing and I wind up doing 20? And in my person, I look back and I used to curse that out, right? What do I have to do it? What do I have to do it? And then I look back, I'm like, holy crap, man. I learned in 2 years probably what other people might take 5, 6, or 7 years to learn. So I complained about it all the time. I whined all the time, man.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm relatively sure Picasso has built features just to keep me from complaining. But one of the things that happened when I was working at that company was I got tired of answering the same question over and over. How do I back up the SQL database? I don't actually know SQL, but I knew the instructions on how to do the backup so well. I finally was like, I don't want to deal with this call again and again. Wrote it down, handed it off to the person who was answering the phones. Next time you get one of these, just send them this Word doc. And someone called in and it worked. That solved the problem. The second person called in and it didn't work, so we figured out why, added that part of the instructions, And 15 calls later, we never had to have a call with someone to back up their SQL database. And in effect, what I'd done was create a knowledge article, unbeknownst to me, and did a few more of those. We got 25% case deflection with 6 knowledge articles, just by identifying what's the consistent stuff that customers are reaching out to, what are the contact drivers, do we have the documentation, the knowledge article, so to speak, that solves these problems, and do we have a way to get it in front of those people? I was doing this just out of frustration. But what that translates into, as I've learned more about Service Cloud, that's a self-service strategy, building a knowledge base, and it effectively becomes the grounding data for AI for case deflection. And just stumbled into doing this thinking, oh, I'm pretty clever for having figured this. This is all systemic stuff that's been around for a while, but kind of learned it the hard way. I'd like to help people avoid having to go through that, quite honestly, because it took a long time.
I'd love to give you credit for it, but I know I heard it.
No.
At least then you're accountable. But it is true. If you want to figure out your biggest contribution, take your top 2 or 3 problems that drive you crazy today and work on those. Fix those things that frustrate you. I have a whole book called Shakespeare Didn't Say That, which is misattribution of quotes about contributions about things. But I always remember the story about Barney, the purple dinosaur. And now I'm sure the story's wrong or the fish has been distorted. But supposedly a mom sat down with her kids one day and said, I've had it. And she's tired of cleaning up. And she said, what do you like about this toy? It's purple. What do you like about this toy? It sings. What do you like about this toy? It's soft and cushy, whatever. And she combined all the attributes of all the toys. So she came up with Barney Dinosaur. And I don't know if the story finishes with the kids having a clean playroom, but I heard that was her motivation. So great other nugget in that. Embrace the things that drive you crazy, because behind them are some really cool ideas.
When I'm talking to customers and, about Service Cloud in general, it's an industry that's just historically underfunded. There's adoption problems. There's a lack of secondary funding because we're not seeing the ROI from that big lift and shift operation to get Service Cloud stood up. If you want to fix the adoption problems, you want to fix the ROI problems, and you want to find all the good use cases for AI and Service Cloud, you have to do one thing and then take action on it. You ask 50 people, what are the 5 things that drive them crazy every single day? Instead of 250 things, you're going to get a list of about 12 to 15 things. There's some outliers, but there's going to be a giant hotspot. And if you know what those 15 things are, and then you actually go fix those 15 things for your team, that resolves all 3 of those problems. There's no longer an adoption issue. Salesforce becomes an asset rather than an obstacle. You create the grounding data as you go, and suddenly your CFO is looking at, oh, my unit cost per support interaction went down 30%, and our average response time has improved by 16%. And we no longer have the need to backfill 8 new positions because another 8 people left in the last 3 months. Very quickly, if you listen to your users, and this is why we've always focused on user experience in Service Cloud, get the obstacles to completing the work out of the way, and your service reps, the humans doing this work to help your customers, they already know how to help your customers. Imagine if you made it easier for them.
Yeah, man. So what I'm hearing is take your best customers who aren't that annoying or frustrating and continue to service them. But there's a gift there, which is some of those most frustrated, annoying users probably are the secret sauce to your next success.
They not only know what's in their way, but they care enough to risk telling you.
Yeah, to circle back to the personal wins, right? You circle all the way back to, hey, I understand you want the company to make money. I understand you want the client to be happy. But at the end of the day, I think I'm hearing that you'd prefer to show up at your front door not emotionally exhausted and having to disconnect from your family. Maybe come in the door being happier and proud of what you accomplished that day. Yeah.
I was a support rep or service rep for 12 years. You're exhausted by the end of the day. There's decision fatigue. There's emotional burnout from endless parade of thankless customers. Just like make people's lives a little easier, and suddenly business problems get solved on their own because your end users, your team who is tasked with doing this work, are leading the charge on adoption rather than the biggest group of obstinate people. It's because you're not helping.
Yeah. Hey, before we wrap up and we talk to people about how we can reach you, I had two other questions if you have time. I know we're close to our,
Absolutely.
but if you have time, I have two other questions. One, I'm really interested in a mentor or a role model who impacted your life, if there's one person there. And the second one is if you could give advice to somebody starting out in the ecosystem, what would it be? So if you could comment on those two, that'd be awesome.
I'm going to start with the second one first, because I think it's a bigger topic and I want to keep it as contained as possible. I think my advice for someone starting out is don't be afraid to ask for help. You're going to have to put in the work on learning the technology. Growing your network is a very active and intentional activity, not a thing where I go connect with people on LinkedIn. Understand what people on LinkedIn are talking about. Is this helpful to me? Is this something that's adding value? I've made some incredible connections over the years by attending someone's webinar and then paying them a compliment and asking them a little bit more, and suddenly collaborating with Service Cloud VPs at Salesforce because I wanted to understand, I wanted to learn from them. So don't be afraid to ask for help. The people I've asked for help have shown up in such an impressive way that I really can't ignore that. The people who aren't willing to help, you're no worse off than you were before, and that's not a good person for you to spend your time with, quite honestly. But that's the rare exception. Most of the time when you ask for help, you actually get it, and it's a really amazing thing.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And the reason I wanted to focus on that one first, when I have asked for help, typically people do show up. And even when I haven't asked for help, leaning in and seeing leadership up close. There's a guy at Salesforce. His name is Chris Anthony. And he was, at the time when I met him, the chair of Salesforce's Soberforce group. It was an internal group started a few years before, but the 2022 Dreamforce, he helped to organize a sober happy hour at Salesforce Tower. I'd never been up into the higher floors. It's been a couple of years. I'm still trying to figure out what being sober really means for my life. And I went to this happy hour, and two interesting things happened. They were expecting they would get maybe 100 RSVPs and 50 people to show up. And the fire marshal shut them down at 500 people.
Holy smokes, dude.
And the other interesting thing that happened was, and it kills me, I don't remember even what he said, but Chris got up in front of a room of people, spoke for about 5 minutes, and suddenly understanding his willingness to talk through his journey, his experience, and hearing what he said, again, kills me. Don't know what it was, but I remember he said something. Suddenly I feel like I'm in control of my choices. I have the ability to navigate and guide my own life in a way that I really hadn't felt before. I ended up with, this is my nerdy Salesforce factoid about me, is I've got, and I don't know if you can see it there, I've got the Salesforce Soberforce logo tattooed on my arm because,
nice.
Even 5 years sober, I definitely didn't figure out the impulsive part of my brain, but I certainly figured out what do I need to do to take control of this and really make this into an asset. From that point on, I can trace struggling with what direction to take in my life. And 3 years later, now I'm in a pretty good spot and really focused on what do I need to do to help more people. But it's, oddly enough, different parts of the Salesforce community, whether I was looking for it or not, have really been a big guide as my career has evolved over the past few years. And the only thing I remember Chris saying in any specific terms was, I'm in a much better place than I was previously by hearing other people talk through this. It's okay to acknowledge this. And suddenly I've been able to start talking about it. It's empowering, and it's something that suddenly people have started coming to me. I've never met them. We have a pretty small company. When I talked about this, even with my team, a couple people showed up. Yeah, I wanted to talk more about this. I'm really glad you said it, because now I feel like I can talk about this too. There was no intent to have that happen, and all of a sudden, there's more people who are comfortable to talk through this and to figure out how to take control of this. So it's in particular, and there's a bunch more people, but his role in particular, I really didn't understand it, but I saw him again a year later at the event, and I was like, I got to thank you.
Oh, dude, that is awesome.
And I couldn't get the words out. I just ended up giving him a hug.
So
that was weird, but
yeah, that was going to be my follow-on question, which is, Did you ever get a chance to tell them, or did you ever tell them that you appreciate them? And I was like,
I've seen him a couple more times, and it's good. It's such a weirdly contextual and hyper specific thing, but all of a sudden Salesforce events are where I go to find community support for keeping my life in the right direction, but it's worth leaning into because when you ask for help, you get it.
Yeah, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate everything you shared on our conversation today. But I will tell you, I'm just overloaded with nuggets and I couldn't even collect them all. But I would tell you that for guys like you and me who, on the surface, glass blower, right? Engineering, like techie, mathematics, all that stuff. For people who started out on a more analytical path, to land on the emotional path, right? To me, has been much more rewarding. And I will tell you, I did a speech in college on why people like each other. And the number one variable that directly correlated to liking somebody was the degree to which they know you like them. So the more I tell Sean Lewis I like him, the more likely he is to like me. So you talk about having an analytical trick up your sleeve, you could do that, right? And I think earlier in my career, I probably did that. I'm like, if I just tell him enough, he'll like me. But now, what you did, when you tell somebody who made a difference in your life that you appreciate them, that to me is life-changing. I believe that's life-changing. You probably should circle back with Chris and ask him, like, hey, how much did that resonate with you? Whether you were the first person ever told him that, the only person ever told him that, or you were the 1,000th person that told him that, I guarantee he's going to tell you it made a difference.
Once I got my wits about me and meeting him again a year later, I'm getting the feeling this isn't the first time someone's come to you and told you this. He goes, yeah, but it's never less awesome. And that's suddenly when that started to happen to me, it was like, oh, that's the reason why he said this. The thing he felt responsible to do was to be visible, to lead people through that. Sometimes professionally or personally, the person who is willing to jump down in the hole with you and tell you they know the way out because they got out. Man. It's worth seeing those people and leaning into those relationships for sure.
Yeah, Sean, this has been awesome, man. I really appreciate how you closed that gap and how you shifted gears and careers, and you're open to failure and you had barriers, and then we finished on the emotional gratitude side of things. That to me, that's what makes the world go round. How can everybody reach you? Give us your contact information, and then don't leave out the Service Cloud group.
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn. There's a few Sean Lewises, but I'm the only one who is the work Picasso and as the Service Blazer user group leader. So it would be weird if I wasn't, but yeah, just find me on LinkedIn. You can also go to join.serviceblazer.com. That's the URL that will get you signed into the Service Blazer Slack community workspace, and send me a DM in there. There's a plethora of incredible resources for Service Cloud, but Service Cloud or otherwise, you want to talk glassblowing, whatever you need to reach out, I am pretty typically able to get back to you. I am not in the market to buy anything, or otherwise I would just want to call that out. So I'm not going to get all the pitches and the DMs on LinkedIn. Oh yeah, that's started to happen too. So, oh, this is what online brand visibility looks like, as people try to sell you stuff right away. But
yeah,
no, yeah. Other than that, let's always happy to talk more, but I appreciate the opportunity to join you here. Hopefully we'll keep your editor busy. Lots of good stuff to work with.
Yeah, a ton of nuggets. Double time on this one. Sean, thank you so much, man. Our listeners are going to really enjoy this conversation.
Sounds good. Good to speak with you.
See you, man.
Magic in the Cloud podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.